Thank you very much for taking me on stage. I will tell you a story which starts almost 12 years ago. So 12 years ago, I was living in a place called Dresden in the eastern part of Germany. And I used to do research at that time, and the research institute was far away from the city. So I used to take a bus which takes 1 hour to get back to the city center. One day, I was sitting in this bus looking outside on a cold winter evening getting back from my institute. An old lady came, we looked at each other with a warm smile, and she sat beside me. Now, something else was also happening in my life. I was very new in Germany, so I was trying to learn the German language, and I was also trying to explore the German cuisine. So what I would do is at times try a delicacy, try to remember the name of the food, and on that very day, I tried a Saxonian delicacy. And I thought, the name is really funny. Why don't I try to remember that name? So when I was in the bus, without realizing that the lady is sitting beside me and having no clue what the name of the food means, I repeated it a few times. Within seconds, the lady stood up, looked at me as if she wants to kill me, and ran away from the seat. And I thought, that's very strange. Why would you do that? What did I do wrong? The next day, I told this story to my colleagues in the research institute, and they fell off their chair laughing. The reason was the name of the food. The name of the food was Toto Oma, which basically means the dead grandma. So there is no wonder that this old lady was thinking I'm a psycho Indian who wants to kill her. So why not run away from the seat? Now, on that very event, a friend of mine said, you know what, it's a very funny story, but I see something very interesting in that story. I wish I was sitting on the backside of your seat. I could have explained what just happened there, and I'm sure that even she would have had a laugh out of this whole event that took place. And that stayed with me for a very, very long time. Why? Because although we were speaking the same language, but we never meant the same thing. And that very element of being able to have someone in your backseat who can zoom out and tell you a very different perspective of what's happening is what building a bridge is all about. And I will tell you within my career how being able to build bridge, being able to step back, helped me to create value for not only us as a company, but also for the planet. And the first interesting challenge came when I started my career in a corporate. I started in a corporate where I was given a task to build a partnership between a very fast-moving startup who was building cutting-edge AI technology to have inspection modules in factories, which can reduce the amount of scrap that is produced in a factory by improving the quality of optical inspection. And on the other side, it was my corporate whom I was working for, a very slow moving with a lot of processes and legacy systems who are against all kind of disruption, but they are extremely good in running processes and making sure that they do not get disrupted. So when I joined this team, I saw that on pen and paper, they were almost like match made in heaven. But nothing was moving. So there were meeting after meetings, there were emails after emails, discussions after discussions, and nothing was moving at all. And then I remembered, what should I do now? I should step back. I should take that back seat to reflect what is exactly happening. So when I took my seat back, and I tried to understand where are these two very different entities coming from, I realized that the startup came with a very different mindset. They wanted to create disruption, they wanted to change things. While the corporate came with another mindset, which is about how to create stability. And believe it or not, corporates are very good in creating stability and sustaining for a very long time. So when I understood this cultural difference, there was something else that I had in my heart, which is, at the end, companies do not exist, but people do. And how can I trigger these people to work together? So there was a meeting where everything was going quite bad. I took the sales head of the startup out of that meeting to have a side coffee chat. So I took Jan out of that meeting on a coffee. I said, Jan, I understand you are frustrated. And I want to ask you, how are you feeling? He said, frustrated? That's an understatement. That's an understatement. You have no idea what I'm going through. So I said, okay, Jan, let's put it this way. At a scale of 10, where 1 means I want to carry forward, 10 means I want to end it immediately, where do you stand? And Jan said, probably at 9. So rather than seeing it as something negative, I said, Jan, why not 10? What is keeping you away from being at 10? And he said, I could have been in 10, but I still believe we are creating technology that can create impact and build factory of future. Surprisingly, without Jan knowing, I did the same experiment with the factory head who is working with the startup. And he had a very similar statement when he was trying to explain how he feels at that stage. And immediately I saw that the problem was that they spoke only about transactional form of doing business. They did not look into transformational way of doing business. So what is it as individual that lies for them in this topic? And when I saw that they both are driven by the vision of creating factory of the future, I thought that's the moment. That's the thing I have to establish in that room. So in one of the next meetings, I tried to do a trick. I reintroduced both the teams, but this time I stripped away their corporate identities and startup identities. I introduced them on things that they believe are important for them. And that did not solve all the problems, but it kick-started something that made things very easy in next steps, as if they suddenly found a golden key to go through all the difficult corporate processes. And of course they had difficulties, but they did manage to get forward in the whole process where they were getting stuck. And I got a very golden rule about building bridge. And that golden rule is that if you want to help people to build bridge, the first step is you, the biggest problem, have to step back. And the next step is you have to help those who are on the two sides to step back and see what values do they believe in and where do they align when it comes to the bigger vision. What is it that as a purpose they both believe in? And that helps you to put the first brick on the whole bridge that you can make and tear down the wall. A bit fast forward, I joined another company which was in the area of aerospace. And in that job, I got a very different challenge to deal with. And that challenge was that I was asked, can we as a company help to build a better future for the planet, create a prosperous business, and also serve the purpose of our associates who believe that they want to contribute and create impact. And if you think about these three words, purpose, prosperity, and planet, most people would say, you know what, they do not align. They are contradiction in themselves. But I knew if you have to build bridge between contradiction, the first step you do is you step back. You go at a zoom out view, and in this case, I literally could have zoomed out because we had satellites which were looking at the planet from outside, and think about this whole problem in a very different way. And in this case, what we tried to do is open our ears and go to different people who were already taking leverage of our planet, who were using resources of our planet. And while talking to several people, suddenly something clicked. And I will tell you the story, what is it that clicked? And before I tell you this, I have to know how many of you love chocolate. Can you raise your hand if you love chocolate? Have you noticed anything about chocolate in last 1 year? Anything that you love to share about chocolate in last 1 year?
Price increase.
Great. That's what I wanted to hear. So chocolates became really expensive. But why? Because the main ingredient which produces chocolate is cocoa, and the 70% of the production of world's cocoa comes from western part of Africa. And what happened because of climate change in last 4-5 years, that these areas were getting uninterrupted floods, sudden heat waves, and sudden climate change related diseases which they were completely not prepared for. So one of the most easiest thing that you could have bought at supermarket suddenly started to become expensive. And not only expensive, the price of cocoa went up by 250%. 250%. If it goes like this, and let's say someone in this room wants to propose their fiancé with a ring inside a chocolate, within 5 years, you should start to save now. Not for the ring, but for the chocolate. And that is something which clearly shows that planet being not treated properly and doing business can get impacted. Why? Because now we have a situation where climate change directly impacting chocolate production, and that have a huge impact in business. And that was a story which helped us to tell the story of how we can put our personal purpose and the planet's prosperity and putting together these three elements in a way that we can contribute to nature. How? We had satellites, we had aircrafts, and we had drones which can help to identify climate change, which can help to identify deforestation, which is one of the main reasons why the heavy climate change effects were being visible in West Africa. And we also have aircrafts which can help to stop wildfire from spreading. So suddenly, from having an impossible challenge, we found a story which connects the personal purpose of individual employees of our company, a bigger purpose of the company which is prosperity, to make profit, and even a bigger purpose which is to make the planet a better place to live, as Mars is only an option if it's chocolate. And this whole incident gave me the second golden rule of building bridge. And that golden rule is to keep your ears and mind open, because you never know where your inspiration and curious serendipity might come from. And that curious encounter you might have is something that helps you to build that building block for building the bridge and tearing down the wall. And if I now reflect on both these stories, I ask myself, how is it that I managed to find these two incidences? And if I step back and again zoom out, I see that there is something inside me. And it's not only inside me, it's inside all of you, which can help you to become a great bridge builder. And that's curiosity. Curiosity helps you to go from where you are to where you can be. Things that you know, to embark in a journey to things that you do not know. And curiosity is something that helps you to ask questions, which helps you to tear down walls and build bridges. And that's why I want to invite you today in a journey of curiosity. So I know today, after our session is over, after the TED Talk will be over, you will go for a networking session. And I want to invite you in a process that when you meet someone, rather than just shaking the hand and knowing what they do and go for the next drink, I invite you to ask them a question. And this question is, why you are here today? And you will be surprised to see that the very simple question of asking why will start to build a bridge which you never thought existed before. Thank you very much, and I wish you a great time today. Thank you.